Yeah, a notorious E.B. Scrooge
Right,
musical.
right. Bah Humbug from the notorious E.B. Scrooge.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, why a musical at this time?
Why, it's Christmas time and of the joy and goodwill that we express to one another at this time of the year. But there are a lot of people that find that it's too commercial, it's not worth the time, it's lost its religious connotations and so forth. But I created this, actually it's an adaptation of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, and it's the expression that old Scrooge, who was the main character and the main character in my piece,
Right.
for saying this is nonsense. This is not worth it to be so joyful, so commercial, spendthrift, and at this time of the year when the world is going to pot with over sentimentality of the season.
Right, right. But I think that I think parents with young kids are still looking for Christmas, for the Christmas spirit out there. So the musical and the nativity concerts and those things, I think, and the Christmas cantatas, we're still looking for that.
Right.
So that means the spirit. It gives you the spirit of Christmas.
Right, absolutely. And I think that what we're trying to show is what we don't have at this time of the year, and awakening that spirit in people, the spirit of giving and love and peace, and also remind us that this is the season when the child was born in Bethlehem and so forth, and the manger and the nativity and all of that, and also the commercial aspect of that Santa Claus and giving gifts and having parties and a lot of cheer as well. So it's that a reawakening of the spirit, I think.
Right, the spirit of
the
Christmas.
Rebirth
right.
of the spirit.
Uh-huh.
With the birth, the advent of the Christ child and the spirit of Christmas being remembered by people who don't want to remember Christmas or celebrate Christmas at all. So it's going through that kind of life. But what I wanted to do more than anything was to remind us of family, of rekindling that old spirit, of going home, of renewing our faith in each other and in the religious symbols that brings forth.
Right. So that's the emphasis that you want to bring in this play.
Yes.
Okay. Before we get further into the play, tell me something about yourself, George, and my audience who's watching. You've been around, you've done some fabulous things.
Yes.
I would like for you to share those things that you've done with my guests.
Well, to start with, the play is being put on at my theater, the Faison Firehouse Theater.
Faison Firehouse.
Right, which I established 14 years ago.
Okay.
And it's been that long. And as a beacon and a incubator for the experimentation of all of our technological miracles that we are living in right now, the digital world. So it's not just trying to do theater, but it's trying to do digital theater. And in doing that, we're keeping up and keeping pace with the changing world.
Definitely.
And we're trying to bring our young people to that realization that there are new careers out here. There's a whole nother world of social media that has to be explored. And there are a great many opportunities for them out there. So that aspect of the theater I'm trying to do, as well as reminding them of the great literary wealth that we have and that we celebrate as Americans, from the great authors, not only of the Harlem Renaissance, but just great writers in general. And the great writer that we have adopted this season is Charles Dickens, hence the name Bah Humbug. So his central character says that's Scrooge, and I decided to change that Ebenezer Scrooge to E.B. Scrooge,
E.B.
and the notorious E.B. Scrooge
Right.
that to give you a hint that it is hip-hop based. But I just started in really traditional theater way back in Washington, D.C., which is where I'm from.
Right.
And I went to Howard University and studied dance and studied with the great Professor Owen Dotson there at the Howard University Howard Players at the in the Fine Arts Department at Howard. Other alumni are Debbie Allen, Felicia Allen, Lynn Whitfield, Roberta Flack comes out of the music department there. Jesse Norman comes out of that department.
Wow.
Richard Smallwood is also a student from there. We have Toni Morrison, the Nobel laureate, come out of Howard University, but a great many. And that's where I got my early education. I grew up in Washington. I went to Dunbar High School before going on to Howard. And there, on that very stage at Crampton Auditorium, I witnessed and felt Alvin Ailey for the first time. And that may have been like in 1964 or 65. And I knew that at that point that was my calling.
Yeah, because you were a principal dancer with Alvin Ailey.
Right, but not at that time. I was just a student and studying very hard. I saw that on that fateful evening in Dakar in 1966 for the Festival of Two Worlds with, President Senghor was the president in Senegal. And they were celebrating the first Festival of Two Worlds at that particular time. Well, that didn't happen, but I stayed on in New York, and eventually I got into HARU ACT and took further training, and then got into the Alvin Ailey Company that spring. It took me a year and so forth. So I got into that company and went on a tour of Africa and Europe and the U.S.
Beautiful.
And did that for the next 3 years. And we went all over and discovered Africa and the incredible country. Danced for Kenyatta in his mountain retreat in Kenya. Flew over Mount Kilimanjaro. Went to Uganda, Tanzania, the Malagasy Republic, which is off the coast of Africa, and just found myself and discovered the world and so forth, and came back to New York and did more touring and the theater, and just developed myself in my career until 1970, when I left the Ailey Company and joined the Broadway cast of Pearlie on Broadway with Melba Moore and Cleavon Little in 1970, and sang and danced my way through that, for the next year and a half, until I decided to form my own company, the George Faison Dance Ensemble, which later became the George Faison Universal Dance Experience. And we toured, and I had such dancers as Debbie Allen and Gary DeLoach, Renee Rose, Evelyn Thomas, people who, Diane Harvey, who is now with and co-director of Forces of Nature with Abdel Salam. And so it's like I came here, immersed myself in the arts, and that's what I've been doing for the last 40 years.
So you've done all this right here in New York City?
In New York City.
Not Hollywood? You didn't go to Hollywood?
I went out to Hollywood. I staged Earth, Wind & Fire, Stevie Wonder, and they're West Coast. They were at the West Coast at that particular time.
So when did you move into drama?
I guess I was always in drama. Our lives are always
But acting, when you did acting.
Acting. Well, when I left the Ailey Company and joined the Broadway cast of Pearlie, I was in singing acting and singing, along with Sherman Hemsley, who was what is his name? He did what is that show with Wheezy,
Not the one.
in a sense, our heyday, because everybody could get in a show, and then Cleavon became a movie star out of that show, and Sherman went on to have a couple of series. He did Amen at one time, and there was one more show, Good Time. I think I keep saying thinking
Good Times, television.
Yeah, and they went to TV,
okay,
and so forth.
okay.
So they developed a lot in TV, and I would go out occasionally and do shows in California and work with a lot of people. I did the Cotton Club movie, but we did the Cotton Club movie over at the Kaufman Studios here.
So you would say that during when you entered the field, that was a good time for black actors and actresses to be.
Absolutely, I think it was a kind of a beginning. You know, we weren't that far from civil rights. If you talk about the '60s, and you talk to about '68. 1968 and so forth. I think that was also the year that Langston Hughes died, but that was also a time of great strife in this country with Martin Luther King in 1964. But you know, we're celebrating actually the 50th year of all of that tragedy actually that happened to us. I was in 1963. I stood under a tree. I was still in high school, and heard I Have a Dream speech. And actually, this is the 50th year of all of that. Of the 4 girls in Birmingham, of all of the things that happened to America at that particular time. So this is a very seminal year for us because we are actually celebrating the tragedy, but we're also celebrating the rebirth. And that's why I also decided I would do a Christmas play. I didn't let the season get by me this time. And so I was able to catch it. And what the twist that we have with it is, you know, as we all know, Scrooge was visited by 3 ghosts. The ghost of Christmas past, Christmas present, Christmas future. But I changed that a bit, and our Scrooge is visited by the women, kind of, in his life. You know, the women, the woman he fell in love with, the grandmother, the grandmother, and maybe the widow. But he wakes up out of that nightmare and repents, and is able to enjoy a full Christmas once he gives up the old, the money, and holding on to all the riches, all the things that don't matter. But the thing that money can't buy, the love and dedication and respect and wholesomeness of the family, is what we are trying to reestablish here at this season.
That's what you're trying to bring to the audience from this play.
Yes.
With a hip hop.
With a hip hop beat.
Okay.
So, because you know, I think that a lot of people I know think that some of the language in hip hop is rather crude, but we've taken that's not in this. But the message and the craft that these hip hop artists really display is nothing short of genius as well, because they tell so many. If you listen closely, there are a lot of stories that they tell through their music, and I use that as a vehicle to kind of get to some of the youth, and I think that our getting to them is our mission, has to be our mission at this particular time, and that's why I established the Firehouse, which is at 6 Hancock Place, which is actually 124th Street. Beautiful theater. Yes, thank you.
The architecture and the and the design and the colors.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I loved it. I loved it. Yeah.
And and the technical things that we're trying.
On the background, really on the cutting edge.
I know, we do the projections and so forth.
On the cutting edge,
So we don't have to haul in a whole lot of scenery. We can take you there instantaneously. That's what all this new technology allows us to do. So we can be everywhere. So I know it's a small theater, but we'll take you all around the world just by sitting in one seat and experiencing.
That's what I experienced last night. I mean, I was fascinated. Whoa, you know.
I know.
How can I transport that here in this studio?
Oh, well, that's my secret.
Beautiful.
That's what we're trying
great. That's
and
really.
I'm trying to impart that to young people. There are a lot of opportunities in this emerging field, and you know that from being in TV and the digital experience gives us an opportunity to express ourselves and opens us up to an even larger audience. The world is open up to us, and that's what I think the kids have to know, the younger people who are looking for jobs or opportunities. That's where we have to look now.
And with your studio, you mean their theater, they're able to, you know, start molding their craft.
Right.
I know the dancers and the actors and actresses, they're all very young. Where are they from the community?
They're all from the community in the New York area, all 5 boroughs, all nationalities. You know, we've had a lot of kids come through those doors up there, and it's through that exchange that we get the diversity that is so necessary in this emerging global world that we are living in, and it allows them to practice on some of this cutting edge technology that we are
so these are new actors and actresses to the field.
To the field. I mean, they're very young and and their bodies can still do everything. They can put their legs behind their head.
Yes.
And then they can hit all those great notes. She absolutely is.
Hit all those notes right up there.
Absolutely. And that's why we have that opportunity open to these young artists and giving them audiences out there and let the audience as well understand and know the enormous talent that we have in our communities.
Right. I mean, it's interesting to see how you brought in the Christmas music with the hip hop. What were you trying to?
Well, I'm diverse.
You're giving them, and they know the importance of what you're doing, and they're embracing it, which is really, it's wonderful to see them, after the play, they're really, excited that they have accomplished something.
Absolutely, and that's and the sense of accomplishment. I think that is so important. So many artists could be discouraged with the lack of opportunity, but you can come to the Firehouse, and we do have opportunity, limited though it may be by our budgets and so forth, but generous in the exchange that we offer.
Yeah, and I think
artists.
Working under your auspices, someone who has traveled, an Tony Award winner.
Right.
Yeah, for The Wiz.
Yes.
You're choreographing that. They know that they trust you because you've had so much experience that you can share with them.
Right.
So
they definitely be able to do that.
They definitely look to you. I was talking with Jasmine, briefly, and she was imparting.
I heard her in a competition with the Harlem Opera Theater, and was really taken by their expertise and the incredible talent that she possessed.
It's great.
And
it's great.
Trying to give her the opportunities, because there are so few out here, but to be able to.
Right. I mean, and then also to have been heard by someone in the audience, like who she didn't know that you were listening. So you never know who's listening.
Right. Someone is always listening. That's why it's so good to put your best face out there,
to be out there,
best foot forward, and so forth. And because it can happen. So it's not, we can't be so disembarrassed by the fact that, I don't have any opportunity. It's out there, but that's what we must embrace and be able to go out there. And
now, how does someone find you?
Well, we're on Facebook. We have I think Twitter. We have all of the social connections that we need for you to reach out to us, and we are located at 6 Hancock Place. That's 124th and St. Nicholas Avenue.
Right.
And you can get to us easily from
Yeah.
the A, D, B, and C trains
Yeah,
that
yeah.
are and are
A block away.
a block away from the, and we are actually a block away from Magic Johnson, 2 blocks from the Apollo Theater, 1 block away from Columbia University,
Right,
and so
right,
forth.
right.
So we're right there.
So since you started, has anyone really moved into, that you can, talk about that has really made a good leap? Like a
Establish the Faison Firehouse Theater to mentor young kids, giving them a voice, and we have them deal with their issues: guns, gangs, violence, teen pregnancy, schools, teachers, parents, and just getting along in the world. And since I've been there, and again, that's been for the last 14 years. We have and a lot of kids have come to us at 12 and 13, 14 years old. Since then, those kids have graduated from college: Touro College, St. John's College, Syracuse, New Haven, the University of New Haven. I have graduates. We've walked them through high school, through college, and so forth, and they come back.
Okay.
And they give back, and that's the great thing about having, dedicated myself to the youth, that the kids have come back as adults and have mentored other people. So that's the great part of taking on young people and helping them through this, helping them navigate these treacherous waters of growing up, and so forth. But they're worth it. In the end, they are worth it. And whether they go into, it doesn't matter whether they go into the arts or not, kind of citizens that we want to grow up and make a difference in this world.
Yeah,
so
it's something that they'll carry with them throughout.
And yes.
Even when they go to an opera or to a play, they'll be able to identify and understand what's taking place.
Right, absolutely.
So it's very important.
Or even on a job program called the Respect Project, and they meet twice a week, and we have been meeting twice a week for the last 14 years, and those are the very kids that I'm saying have graduated, and we then take on more, but that takes money, so we're always looking for
sponsors,
for sponsors and donations and so forth. We are a 501c nonprofit organization, and that's what we also do at the Firehouse. And we do readings. We've had the Classical Theater of Harlem come there, the Harlem Opera Theater. We've had Take Wing and Soar productions come to the Firehouse. We most recently had the Black Art in America exhibit there, and we've had major artists. Charles White, we have Elizabeth Catlett sculptures, and just so many cultural things we've celebrated. Baldwin there, Maya Angelou has done readings at the Firehouse. We've had Lynn Whitfield again do a Zora Neale Hurston program, and so forth. We have done quite a thing. We try to do as much as we can without going into too much debt. So we don't believe in that deficit spending.
Yeah, but
it's not the way.
But sponsorship on the 501c is very attractive to those folks out there listening who would like to contribute.
Are you listening?
So I think that it's a very valuable program for the community.
It is, absolutely.
And I hope that you would be able to continue. But let me ask you, a lot of things have happened in Harlem there that we need to get the story out. Are you pleased with the news that's now flowing out of Harlem these days?
I don't think that we are as connected as we should be with the things that are going on around town. I think that New York won. What is that? I love New York. What is that New York?
New York won.
not New York One, but New York One is my friend over there.
That's a radio
is
station.
Cheryl
We
Wills.
television.
But
Oh, yes.
but I'm saying that it's that it's not I Love New York, but it's the New York a business with the buses and all of the things that come. That I think that they could be a little bit more intense as far as what their destination. We need to get the word out that there is a Harlem that exists. Maybe not the old Harlem physically, but it does exist digitally at the Firehouse. So we have a digital Harlem Virtually Yours program that we would like to get go into partnership with the city with. I think we need more business that will employ a lot more of the citizens of Harlem and so forth. There needs to be, because there's a huge community there of young people. See, the young people never stop coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And their needs and what they would like to see grow every day that they see what's happening in the rest of the world. And they have to be afforded the same opportunity that's going on downtown. And we have it within our possibility to give to them. And well, I'm one. And we need to be joined by a lot of other people who
What's the name of the program you mentioned? In Holland? What's the name? The program you said that you need the city to partner with you?
Right, the Harlem Virtually Yours.
Harlem Virtually Yours.
Right.
How long has that program been around?
But it's a program that we're trying to launch as a tourist program that would highlight on film and digitally the businesses, the tourist attractions, the destinations, the historical landmarks, the exhibits, the places to shop, the places to eat. All of those things is what we are trying to get them to attract as the possibilities for tourists.
So how far has this program?
Well, we're still waiting for a response. I mean, you say, what are we waiting for? Now we're waiting for De Blasio to maybe make some inroads as far as that is concerned. We're ready for our close-up in Harlem, so to speak. Brooklyn has really taken off and kind of surpassed Manhattan in many ways as far as promoting there. And we are getting a Whole Foods, there's Red Lobster, there's Joe's Crab Shack, there's the Apollo Theater, and so forth. But at the same time that we are gaining a lot, we are losing a lot of the old things that we have had, and that was Human Bookstore and a lot of other things. But there are new restaurants and other places that are opening that are taking the place of those places. But we don't have a historical a venue that tourists can drop in, see a 20-minute, 30-minute video of what Harlem, what is representative of Harlem. It could be a hub that would allow then people to get information and then go out into that. Yeah,
because the buses are coming. The buses are coming to Harlem. But no one knows where to go.
Right. But guess what? They can come to the Firehouse. There'll be something there for them.
But
so we want to be a giant kiosk.
Yeah. So is that program that you talk about? Is that together as far as the hotels and the restaurants and all those places where one can go and visit?
There is also a 125th Street bid that also does that, but that's an association of businesses there in Harlem. But there's no one hub that we are trying to be at the Firehouse that would disseminate all of that information and allow people to pick up brochures and pamphlets that would alert them to the shops and businesses and hotels that are there in the area. That's what we would like to become for that community.
Right, because last year the Bahamian American Cultural Society held a Bahamian art exhibition at the State Office building. And I just happen to know a friend who works at one of the buses that tour Harlem every
Right.
day. So I was able to connect with her so that her group can come and visit the art exhibition.
That's what our getting connected, and this is what a great thing that you're doing here. Even our talking and letting people know, a little bit about what is happening in the community. The Bahamian community translates into the Jamaican community in Queens and the Bronx and all of those boroughs.
Right. So that program is definitely needed.
Absolutely.
And I hope the incoming mayor get on board.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
I think the time there, brother.
De Blasio, we're up there. We're waiting for you.
Yes. That is a fabulous program.
Yes, thank you.
It is so needed.
Thank you.
I love it.
Right, and hopefully, and with your help, I'm sure we'll get it. Thank
It's
you.
been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
George. I love it. Glad we met.
Thank you so much.
And I'm happy that you'll spend some time with me.
Yes, thank
it's
you.
wonderful.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, come back soon.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Love it.
Welcome to the Bahamian American Cultural Society Bahamian Art Show. The mission of the society is to expose the culture of the Bahamas. The exhibition here is by various Bahamian artists that were flown in for this particular exhibition. Okay, so thank you for coming. Today we're going to have a presentation by Michael Henry Adams, author of Harlem, Lost and Found.
Welcome to Harlem, the African American cultural capital. There is, as Langston Hughes famously said, so much to see in Harlem. And amongst the things that are here that are incredible to see are wonderful old buildings, but also, for the first time since I've lived here in 1985, there are a broad range of new restaurants that are wonderful to go to of every kind that you might imagine you would want to go to. So, to begin with, old school, doing something old-fashioned that you can only find in Harlem, go on a Wednesday night to the Post on 132nd Street between Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard and Frederick Douglass Boulevard. It's on the south side of the street, closer to Frederick Douglass Boulevard, and you'll know that you're there because the building is the Post, is the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post, and therefore the building is covered with American flags, and it's immediately across the street from a church. Now, why are you going there? You're going there because this is the closest that you will get to going to a Harlem speakeasy of the 1920s. It is a basement room where jazz musicians come and perform regularly, a jazz quartet, and then it has such fame that jazz musicians from all over the world, really, come in and sit in with this quartet on Wednesday nights. They have a fish fry that is sponsored by the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and you can get a fish dinner complete for $10, and drinks are merely $4. So this is the last bargain in New York, and some of the best jazz you ever heard without having to pay a cover charge, which if you consider what it costs to go and hear jazz downtown at Jazz at Lincoln Center or in the Village or the Blue Note, well, it is can cost you hundreds of dollars at the end of an evening. And in Harlem, you spend $20, you've had dinner, you've heard great music, and you've had a few drinks besides. Now, if you want to do something more au courant, go over to Malcolm X Boulevard, between 125th and 126th Streets, and there on the east side of the street, you will find the hottest night spot in Harlem today, the Red Rooster, which is operated by Marcus Samuelson, the famous Ethiopian chef, whose parents died when he was still a child, and he ended up being adopted by a Swedish family and growing up in Sweden. So the food there is a kind of admixture of American Southern favorites like fried chicken, Caribbean dishes, as well as African and Swedish cuisine. And Mr. Samuelson, in addition to having a beautiful bar at the front of the restaurant, which has a DJ booth which is frequently manned by the incredible Brooklyn disc jockey DJ Stormin' Norman. In addition to that, he on Tuesday nights has Latin nights, so they have salsa music and other music being performed, salsa and merengue, and you can go there and dance. And then downstairs he has what he calls Ginny's Supper Club. And there you can not only get a meal, but you can also get drinks at a beautiful bar and hear wonderful performances. One of Harlem's greats, the wonderful saxophonist Patience Higgins, was in performance there this past Wednesday night. So you never know exactly who you will find there. I've heard Roberta Flack and also little Jimmy Scott perform there. It's a great, great place to go to, again, at an affordable price, to hear legends of American music. And then they have a beautiful dining room. Now, the thing that's really great about the Red Rooster, beyond talking about food or drink or music or dancing, oh, and that's one thing I failed to mention, is that downstairs at Ginny's Supper Club, particularly on Friday and Saturday nights, they have a DJ and people dance, and it's so wonderful because, you know, there was no place to go to dance, and they play house music usually, as well as some reggae, and so it really is a fun, fun place. Well, as I was saying, in addition to music, in addition to food, in addition to drinks, the great thing about going to the Red Rooster is the incredible atmosphere and the vibe, because it is such a scene, so that you never know who you're liable to see there. Movie stars, famous models, Charlie Rose, what's the woman from The View's name? You know their names. Oh, Barbara Walters, Whoopi Goldberg, Spike Lee. You have no idea who is going to turn up at the Red Rooster. Now, last night I went to a restaurant close to where I live, which is called Maison Harlem. It's owned by a white Frenchman and a Frenchman of African descent. And these partners have opened this bistro at 127th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. And Maison Harlem is also turning into a little scene of its own, although it's very small and very intimate. But who should turn up there at Maison Harlem just as I was leaving but Tanya Lewis Lee, the wife of the one and only Spike Lee, who is a author in her own right, who's written novels. So Harlem's great because you never know just who you will find at any of these new places. On Malcolm X Boulevard, which is also known as Lenox Avenue, the corner of 126th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard, the northwest corner. And that new spot is called Harlem Social. And then right next door to it is another brand new place that's called The Cove. Now, the thing that's fascinating about these two places is that they are, in a way, sort of polar opposites. Harlem Social is owned by a young Israeli woman, and it is a space that really has attracted a lot of youth who like to come in after work and let their hair down and have a few drinks and listen to music and have some wings or some sliders, and then next door at Cove, you have truffles and macaroni and cheese offered up with designer cocktails that are served there. And it's more upscale, and it's also an older, more mature crowd with a very elegant but modern environment. And so you have really two places that are really identified for two different age groups. I'm sorry, one of my favorite places in Harlem used to be called Mojo on St. Nicholas Avenue, on the northwest corner of St. Nicholas and 120th Street. And Mojo, unfortunately, closed and has now been replaced by a bistro called Cedric. And Cedric is a really fun place with very good food. And they had a little fire at Christmas time, closed down. Now they've reopened. And it's a very stylish place. Right next to it is a wonderful, warm little spot serving southern delicacies like macaroni and cheese and fried chicken that's called Billy's Black. That's owned by a sister. And then nearby on Frederick Douglass Boulevard, on the southeast corner of Frederick Douglass Boulevard and West 117th Street, is a new spot that's called, it's very funny, you know, it's very confusing because so many of these places started out as something else and have changed in a very short time. So Lido used to be called Frizzante, and now it's Lido, and it is a charming place which specializes in Italian cuisine. Nearby, across the street, is a restaurant that's black-owned that's called Chocolat. And they have wonderful drinks, and it's a great place to go on a Friday night for their happy hour. And then one of my very favorite places as I become older and try to be more conscious of eating healthily is our new sushi restaurant in Harlem, which is called Jado Sushi. It's on Frederick Douglass Boulevard between 115th Street and 114th Street on the east side of the street. And Jado is owned by a Japanese American who also owns a wine shop. So his bar really does specialize in bringing to you all kinds of wonderful new wines that you might not have tasted anywhere else before. But it's probably one of the most elegant and beautiful restaurants in Harlem, and the sushi is really top rate. It's not the least expensive place. If you go there and you have a couple of drinks and dinner, for one person it's probably going to set you back around $50. But you will have had a wonderful time in beautiful surroundings. Nearby, on Frederick Douglass Boulevard, between, also on the west side, also on the east side of the street, and between 114th Street and 113th Street is a new spot that is kind of like a lunch counter with a bar. The thing that strikes me about the Harlem Food Bar, as it's called, is that it is the closest thing you will come to finding a typical gay club in Chelsea in Harlem. It's not a gay club, because about half the clientele are made up of young gay men and women. And then the other part of the clientele seems to be made up of young people with their very, very young children who are coming there. And so there's a very kind of fresh vibe and atmosphere in the space, and one only wishes that it would one only wishes that it were indeed a club, because there used to be 6 gay bars in Harlem when I came here in 1985, and now there are none. On the east side, on the west side, and El Barrio in Spanish Harlem, everywhere you go, there are new places. My friend Norma Jean Darden, she has 2 restaurants in Harlem, one on 110th Street near Columbus Avenue, and one on Frederick Douglass Boulevard near 137th Street. And these two restaurants, which are each called Spoon Bread, one is called Miss Maud's and one is called Miss Mamie's, one for her mother, named for her mother, and one named for her aunt. These places are wonderful because Norma Jean Darden was a high fashion model who worked for the famous modeling agency Wilhelmina, and who was one of those incredible African-American models who in the 1970s went over with the American challenge to the French designers, and they won at Versailles, where everyone in the world had to acknowledge that the American designers' fashion was more fresh and exciting and vibrant than the old-fashioned kind of clothes that the French were showing that year. So Norma was there making history, and she came back, and you know, modeling is one of those sorts of careers where you can only do that so long. And so as she was thinking, well, what am I going to do in the future? She and her sister started thinking, and what they were thinking was that they'd been recently to a lot of family funerals, and one of the things that always came up at these family funerals is they would get more photographs of their family members. But they would also find new recipes, because at funerals people cook and eat, and they found that in enjoying these family treasures, these recipes from the past, and the power that they had to evoke memories and what their life had been like in the past, and the joys and delights of earlier times, they thought, well, we should share these with other people. And so they wrote this beautiful book called Spoon Bread and Strawberry Wine. They turned it into an off-Broadway play, and that evolved into them establishing Spoon Bread and Strawberry Wine, the leading African-American-owned catering company in New York City. And it was the catering business that led to them establishing the restaurants. So now Norman's about to open up a place in Brooklyn. We have another Italian restaurant in Harlem on Frederick Douglass Boulevard at 120th Street, and that place is called Setapane, and it's owned by Leah Ibrahim, who is from Ethiopia and is an African from Ethiopia, actually from Eritrea, which is right next to Ethiopia. But she married an Italian, Antonio Setapane, and they opened first a bakery and coffee shop, but that bakery, as it became more popular, people thought, well, we would really like to have just a really nice restaurant, and they answered the public demand and opened up this wonderful restaurant serving authentic Northern Italian cuisine. There is a great place that also serves Italian food called Covo, and it's located on 10th Avenue near the Fairway Supermarket. The finest supermarket in New York you will find is in Harlem at 137th Street on the West Side Highway. That's nearby the Fairway Supermarket. There's a little strip of restaurants on 10th Avenue, and one of those, I'm sorry, it's really 11th Avenue, I guess it is. On 11th Avenue, one of those restaurants, which is called Covo. They serve Italian food. There are a couple of other clubs and restaurants immediately adjacent. Probably one of the most packed restaurants in all of today's Harlem is one that's located on 125th Street, right before you get to the highway, Dinosaur Barbecue. And the barbecue is really pretty good. I mean, to me, my uncle had a barbecue restaurant in Los Angeles, Leo's Barbecue. And so I love good barbecue. Harlem in the past and its history had wonderful barbecue joints like Singleton's and Fat Man's Barbecue, and these places still existed when I first came here. By that time they had sort of run down. And I always begged my aunt and uncle, I said, let me open a franchise in Harlem because people would really love it. And there's never anywhere on the East Coast been any barbecue as good as what my aunt and uncle made in Los Angeles. So there isn't that, but if you have a taste for barbecue when you come to Harlem, by all means go to Dinosaur Barbecue, where you will find that they are minting money selling barbecue to people, because people, not just from Harlem, but from all over the metropolitan area, get on the highway and find their way to Dinosaur Barbecue. There are so many places to come and enjoy in Harlem. If you like Latino food, you can find both authentic Spanish food with tapas, and also Mexican food and Latin American food from Central America and from South America, all in East Harlem in El Barrio. And more and more, there are new places opening up, new galleries. There's the Maisels Cinema at 100 and, the Maisels Cinema, which shows documentary films, which is run by Albert Maisels, the very famous documentary filmmaker. That's on Frederick Douglass Boulevard around 128th Street. And it is a great place because, you know, Maisels is famous for making this movie called Grey Gardens, which was a kind of expose, or not an expose, it was about these relations, a mother and a daughter, who were the aunt and first cousin of Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis and her sister Lee Radswell. But what is fascinating about that documentary is that they manage somehow to maintain their dignity throughout all of the movie, and you can see that by maintaining their pride, that they really are kind of analogous of African Americans and all of the indignities that we have been forced to suffer in places like Harlem. That we have maintained our dignity and our pride and have, despite the odds, overcome all sorts of obstacles to do incredible things and to make the world stand up and take notice. That's what Harlem is really all about. So you can go and see great things like that at the Maisels Cinema. You can go across the street to the Studio Museum here in Harlem on 125th Street, where Thelma Golden is the curator, and she is a brilliant young woman who had previously worked at the Whitney Museum of Art in New York. And she has transformed this place into this exciting place where everyone wants to go to museum openings, which right now the exhibitions include a retrospective on the incredible work of Ramir Bearden, Harlem's own native son, whose 100th anniversary is this year, and then also another person celebrating their 100th anniversary whose work is being shown at the Studio Museum is the great Gordon Parks, the wonderful photographer. And Gordon Parks, I met him and I included him in my book, Style and Grace, African Americans at Home. And he was such a remarkable figure. And the thing that's so inspirational about his story is to realize that he wasn't even aware that he had a gift for photography until after he had turned 30. He went to a pawn shop and bought a camera. As I told you, he was over 30 years old at this point. And he taught himself how to take pictures. His first job, he went to, his family lived in Indianapolis, Indiana, and he was there on a layover, and he passed by the fanciest dress shop in the city, and he saw some photographs of models wearing the clothes that were for sale in the store. So he went into the store and he found that the owners of the store, a husband and wife, were having a terrible argument. African-American man, 30 years old, and the wife said, "Young man, what would you like?" And he said, "I'd like to take pictures of models for your window display." So the way Mr. Parks made it seem was like the man, the husband, was very sarcastic, and this then made the wife more sympathetic, and she said, "Well, of course you can, and take the pictures and bring them back, and I'll make a decision." Well, he took the pictures, but as I can tell you, I've had this experience myself one of the first times I tried making photographs. He took the photographs, and one of them came out, but only one, because he had forgotten to take off the lens cap that protects the lens. So he only had one good photograph, and he didn't know what he was going to do or say to this woman. And so he blew up this picture, and he took it to the woman, and he showed it to her, and she said, "Oh, this is marvelous. Where are the rest?" And then he confessed to her that there were no more. And she said, "Don't worry. This is so good. Take some more, and we'll go from there." And he did, and within a year, he was working as a photographer for Life magazine. And Parks befriended Bergman and took beautiful pictures of her, and he was on his way. So that is the great kind of place that New York and Harlem are. You know, the famous writer Norval Wright said that in order to live in New York and thrive and survive, you have to be prepared to be lucky. So it's a great place to come to, and some of the best people who've ever lived here, most of the best people who've ever lived here have come from someplace else, and many of those have come from the Caribbean. And without that immigration here, Harlem would have been a sadder and more impoverished place for not having the wonderful creativity and drive and dynamism that was brought here by people who wanted to come and to show the world what they could do on the world stage here at Harlem, USA.